For over 50 years, people have come to see the Sharks play. Talent, skill, speed, intelligence, elite-level athleticism. That's not these guys. Biased, one-eyed, opinionated. More often wrong than right. They make up for their complete lack of talent with pure dribble, gibberish, and enthusiasm. This is the ET Stand Podcast. So close, but still so far away. The girls made it. The Jets have made it and play again this week. But our first grade team, well, they're still developing, aren't they? Welcome to the ET Stand, the Sharks fan podcast that lets us talking to the football, and the only sports podcast that was live straight after full time, featuring two grown men crying and consoling each other over the highs and, well, mostly lows of that game versus the Panthers. We're live on YouTube and Facebook right now, and hopefully Instagram if I haven't stuffed up the damn stream button, and also available later on audio on Spotify, Apple Pods, iHeartRadio, YouTube Pods, Amazon Music, and many more. If you're new here to the channel, do hit the subscribe button and join the community of ET Stand buddies that we've got. We've got a current goal of trying to get to 500 subscribers as soon as we can, so that we get a whole bunch of additional features on YouTube with player polls that we're going to be able to do, and viewer voting and a whole bunch of that sort of stuff. So hopefully we can get that in place for next season. Don't forget to rope your mates in as well, so you can join the conversation with them too. Now, this is the last episode where we've got the competition for anyone who gets involved in the chat. So do let us know your thoughts. We're running a competition until next week. Each episode's top commentator, which will be voted on or judged by Matthew Williams this evening, goes in the draw to win a unit from our mates at Displayware, much like one of these ones that you've got here, so you can have your favourite Sharks jerseys displayed like your fifth favourite podcast host, Boldo. On tonight's show, we've got a full complement of the five. So I've held them back because, quite frankly, they're making various pulled faces and trying to make me laugh. So we're going to get them in a second, but a rarity given the weekend that we've just been through. And also we thought, let's name the full squad with the expended bench. So we're going to give the lads not on the debrief a chance to talk through the Panthers match. Franco's going to break down Fitzy's comment. We're a development team. What do we think that means? We're going to go through the list of contracted players, who's off contract, who's not. We're going to discuss what will no doubt be the topic of the off-season, which is 4 into 3. What happens with Dan, the man, Atkinson, Kennedy, and the like. And we're going to chat through the Jets, their grand final win and their grand final this weekend. And we, of course, chat through that amazing NRLW result. All right, well, let's get the panel in without further ado. And so firstly, introducing the man who was with me every step of the way on Saturday night. As I switch to that view, there you are, Stephen. Got any new perspective, mate, a few days later?
No, buddy. I mean, silver linings and all that. I'm excited to watch the NRLW and the Jets on grand final day, so we'll have something to enjoy and get ramped up for. Fire the barbie, crack a cold one. It's not going to be the worst day. But
you invited me over for a barbie, Franco. How good of you?
No, only my friends are invited.
Fair enough. Okay.
Correct. Look, it's one of those scenarios that I think we did well, right? As we sort of said in the debrief, we're up against one of the best teams in the comp, in the NRL for many number of years, that will be regarded as one of the greats. But still, I feel as though it's an element of what could have been, right? I do think that we had a few opportunities missed and we gave them a few too many opportunities. I think, as predicted, if we'd have brought our A game, I think we have that game. I think, there were a couple of opportunities gone begging, dropped ball in scenarios where momentum was flowing, but just halted our tracks. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're right, aren't you? All right, well, let's get the other lads in. It's just another post-mortem. Matty, sadly, no Chronicles this week, buddy.
No, unfortunately. I think I was going to do the 78 drawn grand final if we did get to that position because I couldn't do the 2016 one justice. We'll have to give that another 2 years, I think, before touching that, at least make the 10-year anniversary. But given the way the Jets and the girls went, it would have been nice.
Wouldn't it?
Too late for me to hurry it together now. But doing the 2012 Sharks reserve grade, joint with Stormby, with Chad Townsend at halfback and a whole stack of other players, Jason Bakuya and the like. Or
Billy
I mean, 94 reserve grade premiership. That's in there. So cool. that's a thought. Maybe later in the week we might look at that. Given that I found out only an hour ago is on YouTube.
Get your comments in the comments if you want to see Matty do the chronicles on the reserve grade team. We're not as animated in the comments. We've only had Harley come through in the comments so far saying g'day. G'day, good to see you, Harley. Sharks girls, one game, great game. Yes, you are right there, Harley. All right, well, the next man we're going to bring in, Mr. Kelly. Look, do you wear as much merch this week? Or you just switched?
I've still got the Sharks trackies on because it's still a bit fresh this evening. But every time I go to reach for something in the cupboard, I just can't. I was proudly wearing it around the Illawarra and prelim weekend and trying to show it off and bring a good charm in. But yeah, it's NFL season for me now, switching over.
It's just painful.
How good's your grand piano in the background?
Oh, it's amazing. Fireplace. I've got to turn it back on.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, and then let's get the man who's probably got a sore knee from sitting next to me at the game, having me slap it 20 times during the match. And we'll switch to the rare five-person view here. We'll boot Franco. We'll bring Lats over. There we go. All right. We've put you on the big screen. There you go, Lats. You're on the big screen. There you go, mate. We can see you.
How good. How are you, legends?
Mate, how's your knee?
The knee's good, mate. Probably better than your backside when you kept sitting on that flag that was standing up between the seats there. But yeah, mate. A little bruised, but we'll get through. I'll ice her up.
All right, fair enough. All right, we've got a comment here from Dean who wants us to answer any thoughts on jersey ideas for next year. Chris, you want to think about that or you want to answer it now?
Oh, I think I touched on it during Franco and I show during the week. I still can't get over our retro Reebok jersey this season, which is absolute fire. I thought they couldn't go past the V one they brought out, but that Reebok jersey, you can't beat that. I'd like to see it like, I know the Panthers have got to wear their pink jerseys for the grand final, which is a bit of something different because they clash with the Storm the Storms in their purple that they're going to wear because they're the home team. And I wish that would turn into our third alternate strip permanent full time. So watch this space for next season.
I tell you, I enjoyed watching the Sharks Pepsi Super League era jersey on the weekend. Actually, that was quite a fun one to wear. So we're going to try and Dino. We're going to do an episode just purely on merch for next year. So we'll see how we go. And then 2.0s in the comments. Williams 2.0 has come through saying future is bright, lads. AFB coming is going to improve the middles, which in turn improves Blake, which in turn gets Nico and Tricky on the front for a foot. It's coming home in 2025. Hurricane. All right, well let's get into the socials with Lat. Kick out the other three. There we go. Oh no, I've got to kick you out now, Frank. No, Williams. And then there we go. All right,
here we go. Finally.
There we go. All right, now, Lats, there's a bit going on in the socials, so we'll hit
quite a bit, mate.
Screen. There we go. All right, mate, let's take it away.
Alrighty, there's some very, very proud Sharks fans across all social platforms after our preliminary final match against the Panthers at Accor over the weekend. Fans have been posting their comments in big numbers stating the boys showed enormous ticker resilience and it has been a pretty amazing year for the boys given we barely had any rep inclusions, were without starting halves for lengthy periods throughout the year, copped in intense heat from the journos, and they were feeling that it's a real growth season and are eagerly awaiting the arrival of AFB next year to take us to another level. Alrighty, news broke only a couple of hours ago that Jack Williams has agreed to terms with the Parramatta Eels on a 3-year contract for the 2025 season onwards. He'll likely replace the departing RCG. I'd like to wish Jack all the best going forward. Thank you for your service, and I think our error rate may have just improved by about 50%.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So Jack Williams leaving and going to join the Parramatta Eels team, that actually will improve the error rate of both teams because on our team, he makes so many errors. So him coming out of the team will help us. But actually, compared to the Eels players, he doesn't make anywhere near as many errors as them. So it's going to improve both teams.
This is true. It's a win for all.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, the Dally M Awards are...
Hold on, lads. Harley's come through in the comments saying, oh, no, Jack Williams. Yeah, we do. All jokes aside, and Harley, you are right. Thank you, Jack Williams, for your service to the Sharks. And that picture of you when you dropped the ball, that disappointment after the Warriors match is certainly one of the sticking moments of the season. So, yeah, thanks for your service.
Yep. Yep, he had a good year, Jack, and yeah, thank you, mate. All right, the Dally M Awards are upon us once again, and 3 of our boys are up for nomination this year, them being none other than Jesse Romian's up for Centre of the Year, Blake Brayley for Hooker of the Year, and Cale Idor, who is up for Rookie of the Year. Jesse had a standout season, only just missing out on Origin selection. Blake had an incredible year at Hooker, and his work in defence was massive, and Cale has proved he's a very handy NRL-level centre, and surely Fitzy's name gets thrown into the equation for Coach of the Year, Boldo.
Well, it's not a bad shout. Getting any team to a prelim finals, pretty tough ask, and we've certainly improved year on year for a development team. It's not a bad shout, lads.
Yep. Very good. Alrighty, our NRL W girls are through to the NRLW Grand Final after rolling minor premiers the Brisbane Broncos in a 14-0 shutout at Totally Workwear Stadium in Brisbane on Sunday. The girls' rock-solid defence was well and truly on show, and their attack was also very sharp with tries to Tiana Penatani, Anessa Biddle, and Cassie Staples. Taylor Preston converting 1 of 3. The girls go on to play regular season runners-up the Sydney Roosters on Sunday at 3:55 p.m. at Accor Stadium for their shot at premiership glory. So bring it home, ladies. The whole Shire is behind you.
We are indeed.
Alrighty. The Newtown Jets knocked minor premiers, the North Sydney Bears, in a seesawing affair in the knock-on effect New South Wales Cup Grand Final that was played at CommBank Stadium on Sunday afternoon. It was an absolute cracker of a game, and if you haven't had the chance to watch it yet, I suggest you do, as you definitely won't be disappointed, unless you're a Bears fan like Boldo. Tom Rodwell opened the scoring with a try in the 16th minute before Bronson Garlick went over for the Bears in the 20th. Chris Faia crossed 6 minutes later before Falongo crossed in the 34th minute for the Bears. My man, Marween Harotti, scored an absolute bell ringer right on the stroke of halftime, saw us go into the sheds for the break, 16 points to 10. Alan Fitzgibbon, yes, you heard that right, crossed in the 43rd minute before Newtown struck back with a try to Jordan Liu in the 52nd minute. Harry Wilson went over for the Bears 6 minutes later before Braden Hamlin-Ueli scored in the 64th minute to seal the victory. Puru slotting 4 from 5 with a boot, and Jets now go on to play Queensland's North Devils at Accor Stadium on Sunday for state championship bragging rights.
Woo!
Alrighty, our Jersey Flag squad took on the Canterbury Bulldogs in the grand final at CommBank Stadium on Sunday, where the lads fell just short, going down to the Doggies 14-12. The boys were down 14-0 at the break and came out firing in the second half, but unfortunately it wasn't enough to seal the win for the club, with the game finishing 14 points to 12. Lads can be extremely proud of their season after all but being written off as contenders earlier in the year before going on a 10-game, and yes, I can now say it, winning streak to charge into the grand final. We have some great young talent at the Sharks, which will ensure our strong depth well into the future.
Indeed. Here, lads.
All right, and finally, a few picks from the game on Saturday night. You see the host and myself. I don't know what I'm doing to that Shark there, but if the RSPCA get involved, it's got nothing to do with it. Yeah,
the Sharks fans were very good the other night, I thought, lads.
They were very vocal. I reckon they outshone the Penrith fans big time. Big time. Very vocal. I know I didn't have much of a voice left. I don't know what's going on in this photo, Boldo. I don't know if you've just been to the bathroom up the top and you're telling people not to go in there. I don't know if you're telling us the food's overpriced or if you're trying to fire everyone up. You want to talk us through this one?
On someone else's socials and was sent to me from a friend of mine. Said, get off my social media reels. Oh, there he is.
And here we have a photo of podcast royalty in Sharkcast host Sam Shinazi and Boldo absolutely fangirling and pulling him in for a selfie. And we also had Sam dial in onto our debrief from Saturday night, which is a very, very good listen. So jump onto the platforms and give that a listen.
Yeah, he jumps on about an hour in, the great Sam Shinazi. It was terrific having him join the ET Stand debrief with Franco and me. Wasn't so good him telling me that Franco was his favourite, though. But, look, I can forgive you, Sam, for that blemish. But otherwise, Sam's a great bloke, but just a terrible judge of quality podcast hosts. But that's okay. We'll let him off. All right, that's everything, lads.
That's everything, mate, in the socials.
All right. Thank you for that brilliant update. All right. I better move the banners down, actually. Let me just go do that. So, yeah, that was Latch's social update. So, there we go. That's why it's in the red. Now we're going to move to the versus the Panthers final discussion. So, we're going to bring in the lads, and we're going to go like that. We're going to go, oh, no, we don't want that one. We want that one. There we go. All right. The three boys that weren't on the debrief with Franco and me, I'm going to try and keep my opinions to myself and just ask you the questions and facilitate a discussion. Matty, we'll start with you. Critical errors, or were the Panthers just too good for the Sharkies?
Both. So critical errors, yes, way too many. But at the same time, too, that you look at what Cleary did just after we had the Hines no try. You look at what they did late on. Just critical errors. I think I completely agree with you guys the other night. Didn't aim up and get the finer details right. Probably a function of many things: the conditions, the fatigue, the amount of injuries who went into it. But Penrith, they weren't their best, and that's why it's such a kick yourself kind of moment, because we had our opportunities. We should have taken it. We should have done better. But going into the match, and in hindsight, looking how many players that we had were busted, it was always going to be an uphill battle. So did we force those errors out of Penrith? Maybe. I thought it was some good defence and some good kicks. And look, Edwards drops a few. They had a few, but a great hit by Nikora, who I thought was quiet watching live, but watching the replay last night, great hit on Lee Martin to turn possession over. So we had our moments, but we just didn't capitalise, especially the second half. I couldn't bring myself to watch that in full. That was just so frustrating. So it's
I did
both.
the same,
Melbourne, not Melbourne,
I did
Penrith
the same. I got
won
to
the
half time.
moments. Yeah,
I got to
and then
half
the
time
second
and couldn't
half,
rewatch.
too many
And you
errors.
just like,
It was one error each after 33 minutes. So that includes Rudolph had that error early on, and we're all like, oh my goodness, that was a huge tackle by them in the wet. It was just Penrith winning those big moments. There was hands on the ball. Rudolph should have done better to hold it, but I could see how he did lose it with the amount of, I suppose, pressure he had in that tackle. And I think it was Fisher Harris and Leota, I think, with the both on him. So it's both.
fair enough. CK, Atkinson, and three forwards, or should we have had the four forwards? Is the answer pretty clear now?
Look, in hindsight, we wanted the four forwards, and I saw you guys speak about in the debrief about slotting Atkinson out there because Iro was a bit underdone and a bit injured, and that kind of happens prelims. Back end of the year, you guys are kind of struggling out there. So, the fear was that he was going to get, a novelty role, or if not, thrown in the centres, which isn't his ideal spot, especially in those slippery conditions. He's not really the go-to guy. Made some good tackles and things like that, but yeah, it's not ideal. We didn't want that. Watching the Jets game, ULE could have easily popped up and played that game, whether that was, to appease a lot of people throwing Atkinson in there, but it's not his spot.
No, it's not, is he? Vlats, how important that loss of Ramian?
Mate, very important. It shuffles our bench. It's he just wasn't. Talakai wasn't as crisp in defence. He let Alamotti in a couple of times. He did have a couple of really good moments. So I thought that sideline throw was pretty good to get us our possession back. But we really miss having Atkinson coming off the bench. We really miss the striker Talakai, who we could have used there.
Yeah, that's right. Anyone in the comments wants to get a comment in and ask the panel a question, and you can specifically target anyone if you like. Ask the panel a question about what they thought. We'll just hit through some of these comments here. Williams 2.0 is coming through saying Cleary was just levels above. The way he takes his moments is just pure genius. A healthy Nico will get us there. Just believe for next time. We'll talk about Nico for next time. One bright spot for the Sharks was certainly that Sione Katoa try in terms of an individual brilliant effort in a finals match. Matty, where does that try sit for you?
I was up there. It was great considering Katoa had been absolutely ironed out just prior to that. A late hit in the back when we went back to the 20 when that kick just went dead. I think it was Garner hit him. And I thought he was gone for all money. And then to put that acrobatic piece of brilliance in the wet on, and it was millimetre perfect. A great job to, I suppose it was indicative that it was the only opportunity, well, we had those opportunities from kicks. But it was the only opportunity with the ball in hand where we looked likely, and I'd say it was probably a 10-90 chance. It was a low percentage play, but he pulled it off. Other ones that come to mind, obviously notwithstanding 2016 and all of the greatness of Fafita and Maloney the week before that, Lewis with his effort, Pryor's effort in week 1. But going back, you've got the 2002 prelim try by Brett Camorley, the second one. That was a great individual run there to score to tie it up at 10-all. You got other ones too, the Peachy try and the 99 prelim, where he stepped everyone, a hint of obstruction, but he still stepped 2/3 of their team and scored. So there's plenty in there, but Katoa's is up there.
Kelly, your favourite lateral plays, Camorley inside balls was the in-game. So for anyone new to the podcast, Chris and I screaming at Brett Camorley about the damn inside balls in those 2,000 years, which just literally made us lose our voice. There's a strategy with how Nico was playing. It just doesn't seem right, does it? What's your take on that?
Yeah, again, Matty touched on it with the conditions. I don't think they were great. Like, that was my fear. Everyone sort of howled us down, or our host howled us down about talking about the weather. But it obviously played a massive part on a Saturday night when it was teaming down and it turned into a wet football game where it should be a hot, dry sort of late September where you get that nice feel in the air. Yeah, we were pretty lateral again. That comes back to not having the 4 forwards. I thought we did quite well against a big Penrith pack like that. And I think we made an error early on by going sideways. It was mentioned in commentary about these conditions. You shouldn't go down that 5-metre corridor. And I mentioned to a mate that I was watching the game with Kennedy going out the touch. I mentioned in commentary during the game, to a friend, that wasn't Penrith's go. They don't like to go through the middle, and that's how we're winning the arm wrestle, because they were forced to go right through the centre. Whereas we live in that area. We love going through the centre. I've said it all season, we're going to bash down the door. And then it kind of told in those last couple of minutes where we're looking for our inside ball play and there's no one within 5 metres. And it just made us turn into a scoreboard pressure team, and it doesn't work for us.
Well, the 2 points that they took also built a bit of scoreboard pressure on us, didn't we? Lats, I'm going to change the order of the questions here because I'm nixing the one I was going to give you. Do we win that game if AFB plays for us?
Mate, if we hold the ball, we do. You can't give up 15 handling errors against the reigning premiers and expect to win. I think he'd give us a lot more go forward, and especially having Talakai in the centre there. I think we'd have a bit more strike in the middle. But no, I don't. I think the Penrith would have got us in the end. Would have played the 80, ironed it out. But if we where we went wrong was our errors that really hurt us.
They certainly did, didn't they, Matty? Looking at that starting team, we've already seen the departure of Jack Williams. Royce Hunt's already on the way out. Who from this starting team might start having some question marks about them and might need to be looking over their shoulder for, am I completely secure in this team?
I know you very well, David, and you always ask a question that you know the answer to. I know you want me to say Will Kennedy, but I'm going to say Will Kennedy is not at risk at the moment. And I'd actually say no one.
I don't necessarily think it's Will Kennedy.
Well, we'll talk about Nico later, but I don't.
I don't know who it could be. I'm not sure who could possibly be in trouble.
So,
I'm not sure.
I don't think Captain Cam is in trouble at the moment.
I don't think so either. But
yeah,
I've been sitting on that. I've been sitting on that picture of Cam. Hold on, Matty. I've been sitting on the picture of Cam's head for a joke for like 6 weeks, and I finally found the moment to like bring it up into the thing. So
I want to know. I want to know which kid you stole that off. You didn't steal that off my son, thankfully, but some poor 10-year-old had some guy go, take it off him so that he could do
it's my favourite player. Take it.
Exactly.
I think you need to go to it with a Sharpie. He's got all his teeth in that picture.
He does have his teeth in that picture.
Sorry for interrupting great grand final tries. I'm going to segue just back for a second. Great grand final tries. Yes. 2 players in the outside have done that. So obviously the Trindle ones last week, but Cameron McInnes's effort to score last week, that was fantastic. The big reach to score. And Toby Rudolph scored a great individual try against the Cowboys in 2022. But on that, I suppose it's in line with that. I don't think any of them are under pressure. There will be some pressure going forward because you'll have Jesse Colquhoun coming back, obviously AFB. So the forward pack will maybe Tapua will come on in his development. Same too. Hopefully BHU has a big off season and gets back to some level of form and fitness to place pressure on that forward pack to get us going again. Outside backs, obviously Stone Street's playing another big match this weekend, has form in first grade. I don't think he's pressuring Katoa or Mulatalo, but if one of them was to dip out and then Stone Street had a run of matches in there, he could obviously cement his position if needed. And then you've got Cade Dykes, Daniel Atkinson, and what other options have we got at fullback? Sorry, Liam Ison, who is playing a big match himself this weekend. So, yes, there is more pressure to come, but I don't think it's naturally as a result of the other night or their performance the other night. Across the board, they didn't aim up or stand up, and I think that was a function of many factors, playing week 2 of the finals, the conditions, the injuries that we carried into it. So I don't think anyone's at risk, but I think it's exciting times going forward. And that's why live watching it the other night, I was feeling very good, like Williams 2.0, no relation, but I was like, yeah, I'm happy with that. That is the least devastated. I'd actually say that's the least devastated I've been after a Sharks finals loss ever. I've been way more livid with performances that weren't prelims. For example, 2017, 2015, 2019 against Manly. So many. 2005 against the Dragons.
No, don't do it to us.
Don't
do
no,
it.
I'm stopping
22
right now.
and 23.
This one,
22, no, 22
exactly, 22 and 23. So this is by far the least. But then watching the replay last night, the opportunities were there, and now I am angry. But that is okay. It is for a purpose, and I think we're building. This is a 2015 style year. I'm not going to say next year's 2016, but I do. And I'm not saying we're going to win a prelim next year either, but I think that we're obviously anything could happen. But we've got ourselves. This year has gone as good as it possibly could have gone, I think. We'll have a look at the full season. So a lot of words to say, as always from me, that no player is under specific pressure, but pressure will come naturally throughout the course of events in the off-season and early in the new year.
All right, CK, any final thoughts on the match?
Can I just touch on that? There's a big pressure on AFB coming in as $1 million player. Like we're all saying,
Yeah,
AFB is going to be the one that turns it. But in saying that, the Roosters are losing a plethora of players, like a lot of players, big time experience. The Storm's going to lose, obviously, Nasa's going out and moving on. The Panthers are going to lose Luai, Taruva, James Fisher-Harris. So they're going to be in a little bit of a downturn as well, possibly. So maybe the pressure is on us next season to really, like, we've got no problems and we're coming off the back of a prelim and adding a key player. So I will say this, Sharks fans, again, I'd rather be in the top 4 than the bottom 4, but Ashley Klein probably saved us quite a bit because there are 2 guys in Rudolph and Talakai. Probably more Talakai should have seen the sin bin. And for us not to see a sin bin in those situations was pretty, handy for us not to lose those guys in that first half. Like if we lost one of those guys, it was game over in the first half. So thank you, Stars. We were in the arm wrestle as long as we were.
All right. 2.0's come through with a comment saying possibly Teague to the bench, and if Jesse Colquhoun can have a great preseason, could be a sneaky chance to start. I think I would agree with that. It wasn't too far off pressuring him before.
More of a middle than an edge from what I've seen of Colquhoun.
He might be one of those Jack Williams style both types.
Yeah.
And then Sonia Quigley's come through saying, AFB game changer, Nico to fullback. Oh, goodness. We're not going to talk about that just yet. All right. Well, look, thanks, lads, for that wrap up from that match. Maybe less said about that one, the better for now. All right. Well, look, we're going to bring in Franco because a big thing that came through out of the press conference was that the man, the coach, and I'm not going to risk having all 5 of you at the same time. That's just way too dangerous. All right, there we go. Coach Fitzgibbon in the press conference came out and said that, look, we're a development team playing a dynasty team. So I thought this was pretty telling. So I thought, all right, well, let's just get Franco to give us a bit of a interpretation of that comment. Franco, what are your thoughts on that from Coach Fitzy?
I mean, it's a lovely sentiment, right? It's a great comment, a great soundbite, and something we all really want to hear. Everyone would love to aspire to do what the Panthers have done, but you don't just make a dynasty. If you could, everyone would have their turn. You could certainly strive for it, but even the Panthers needed a lot to go right to achieve what they have. Remember, the board overruled Gould and brought Cleary back as coach, giving Griffin the flick at one point there. If they don't do that, Cleary Jr. probably goes off to the Tigers and Panthers dynasty never exists. Same can be said for any number of potential injuries or suspensions and signings that happened over that period of time. It's not just something that, you know, you say you've got a whole bunch of development players coming through, so we're going to do this now. And if you look at their current squad, they've got a lot of players in there that really sort of just that stopgap between now and when their next batch of kids come through. There's a lot of journeymen that have helped plug those gaps. So, you know, before their current run of hot form, the Panthers were very much a development team with a very large junior base to build from. We are, without question, replicating that. Maybe not with as big a junior nursery, but still a pretty big catchment area with a lot of talent. We saw last year no new recruits of note. This year, one in AFB, and it just comes down to how well do our guys develop and how well do we identify the gaps that need to be plugged versus the talent that needs to be kept. Panthers have lost a lot of talent over the years. Each time a piece goes missing, people think that's it for them, but they keep turning up. Personally, I think Luai next year will be the piece that breaks it all.
Big loss for them.
Big loss. But they will still be competitive. You know, there was a lot of talk for us keeping Trindle at all
But is it
costs.
underselling us, Franco, calling us development?
Not at all.
Like we were mixing it. We were mixing it with the. We're in a
Not at all.
prelim.
No. If you want to go down that path, calling us development is a real, trying to keep it clean here, but it's a real up yours to the NRL and the Panthers. Because if we're in the top 4, and technically we joked about it on the debrief episode, we'd say we're 3rd, considering we did better against Melbourne and Penrith than the Roosters did.
I think we're the third best team based on that finals series.
So we'll go with that. We're the 3rd best team in the league this year, and we're calling ourselves a development squad. We're developing, and we're 3rd, which means we've only got room to move upwards. If we'd have said we're rebuilding or anything like that, you know, similar kind of sentiment, we're getting better, but development means it's all in-house. It means we're happy with our structures, we're happy with our pathways, we know where we're going. A rebuild is a little bit of an unknown, right? So we're definitely not doing that, and we haven't gone out and bought a whole heap of players. So no, it's not a slight on the club or its direction to say we're development.
We're also not a gamble and bet everything now salary cap style team.
Exactly.
See, I think it's a fair comment from Fitzy, maybe putting the guys at bay, but certainly we are a development team. I think that's right.
There is a little bit of that parochial nature in the Shire where fans latch on to the Sharks Club better than ever when we have juniors coming through the ranks. There is that local pride. And if we can do that, and if we can sort of get that community attachment through our team, then happy days, right? It does the marketing for us. It brings in the local.
We're still talking about Matt Rogers, aren't we?
Well, we are, but I mean, even, and this is going back a little bit. Obviously, this is pre-2016, but not by much. This was Lyle Gorman had a pretty well attended community engagement session in which you think you were there with me, Boldo, and there were heaps of people there, and it was, how can we fix the club? How can we engage with the club? With the fan base, how do we become part of the community? How do we bring people through the gates? And vast majority of comments and people standing up to have their 2 cents was, we want to see local juniors get their go. We want to see, you know, kids that have played and grown up in the Shire get their chance. And it was then capped off by the great Peter Gow, who stood up, basically echoed that sentiment to a rounding applause. Now, the grand final may have fuzzed off those edges a little bit, considering we only had one local junior in that squad, but ultimately, I think it still rings true that Sharks fans want to
Want
see
shy
local
locals.
kids in the team.
Yeah, that's true. Let's just
So,
bring up
there's
this
a lot.
comment.
Yeah.
I was going to just say this comment from 2.0. Development means these players are developing to play the big games. Which of them besides Nico have played a prelim and final? These boys need to learn the type of football it requires to win in those matches. I think that's
Well,
right.
yeah. I was about to say 2.0, like we're talking about keeping Trindle at all costs, but is he that good? Is he the guy that can not only win us a comp, but keep us within touching distance consistently?
Well, that's where
Because theoretically we have Nico for 7 years. We're starting to stockpile some good young talent, not to mention Atkinson. Do we want to block that pathway for the next few years? Maybe we do. Maybe they need that development time. But if we are talking anything near the 900K as speculated by media, do we take the cheaper option in Atkinson, which has shown to be pretty fruitful, and use that money to retain some of this talent that we're talking about coming through? There's a
that's a
lot
good
to think
segue to the
about.
next segment, Franco. Why don't you take us through so Atkinson's got how long left to run?
He is off contract November 1st.
So November 1st. So explain to me how the rules work.
So you're off contract, which means you can be signed today,
Jack Williams,
for next season, or you are due to come off contract as of November 1st. So if you come off November 1st, you are then eligible to sign for the following season, so 2026 in this scenario.
Got it.
So we currently have a batch of players that are off contract as of right now that could be signed and
by anyone,
turn out for another team 2025. There's been rumours that both Hazelton and Kafusi have agreed to terms, but nothing official has come out. So technically with their mutual offer and club offer, we don't quite know what's going on with them, but they could either be locked in or not. We do know that we've let Hunt go to the Tigers, and as Lats mentioned, just announced today, Jack Williams theoretically has now gone to Parramatta. Other than that, the list is still pretty much the same as the contract video that we discussed earlier in the season. Put Bolder on the spot for anyone who doesn't listen live. Maybe he can work out how to stick a link up the top here so that you can click to that video.
I'll work out how to do it, Franco. At the 37:45 timestamp.
Yeah, get it in there. But yeah, so off contract right now, we could wake up tomorrow with finding out that they're playing for another club is Burns, Beryl, Peru, Takamo, and including the development players Hiroti and Bradbury. So they are all available to go as we speak. Then we've got McInnes, Atkinson, Dykes, Mulatalo, Stone Street, Tapua, Wilton, Kennedy, Nickera, and Trindle off contract come November 1st, as well as development players there, Ison and Kultz. So
that's like an enormous number of players.
There is an enormous number of players and some pretty key players too, some pretty important guys for our club. And now that the season is over, you will see a lot of contract discussions ramp up, hopefully with some of those players before November 1st.
Cody McGowan threw in the comments saying Talakai should get all of Williams' minutes as the backup lock. And then Scott Latz is saying, not Hiroti, surely. All right. Well, look, the big question that's there is really and this is going to be the big question coming into the off season is the 4 into 3. So let's bring Matty in for this discussion. Let's switch to that view. Hello, Matthew. You just heard it there. Obviously, we've got a whole bunch of players coming off contract. That's going to be the biggest question for us this season. This is not the first time the Sharks have had a 4 into 3 type scenario. Tell us about some of the other ones.
Yeah, not even, I suppose, talking about salary cap issues. So the first one that came to mind when you put this to me this afternoon was David Peachy versus Ben Samet. back in 1995. Samet was he was the standout fullback. Peachy had a few injury issues. He made his debut in 94, but only played a handful of matches, most of them off the bench. Samet was the next big thing at fullback. He almost got us a field goal from fullback to tie it up against the Knights in the semi-finals. And then Samet's form kind of waned, and Peachy's the great man that we know he is, took the number one and never looked back. So following that, Peachy was the mainstay for a fair while. Then this guy called David Simmons came along. Cool. The club made their decision. I still disagree with it 20 years on, but that's okay. Simmons took over and Peachy moved on. But then Simmons didn't work out. Brett Carney went in there. So this is just fullbacks I'm talking about, by the way. In the meantime, we know what happened to Preston Campbell with him not fitting into the spine back in 2002. Obviously, we saw Carney get injured and disappear to England. There was a revolving door. And then the next big, I suppose, push come to shove incident after the 2011 or 2012 season. One of our chronicles covered that we had 5 fullbacks play that year. So we had everyone from Matthew Wright to Nathan Stapleton. Nathan Gardner was the standout. I thought Isaac Gordon also played there. Stapleton was the standout. He got pushed out of fullback by Michael Gordon. And then, what's his face? Nathan Gardner was the staple. It was Gardner was the standout. He got pushed out and not seen again. And then Flash Gordon was pushed out by Ben Barber. And there was that shenanigans happening in 2015 between Barber and the like. So looking at it, and I'm not sure if you brought up the comment from Williams 2.0 here regarding Will Kennedy. I'll bring it up here. Is Will Kennedy a fullback you can win with? And this is Williams 2.0. His opinion is no. He's at his ceiling. He's solid. Compare him to other top 8 fullbacks. Probably take most over him. He's not and then the follow-up comment to that was, it's not a knock on him. It's a fact the pace isn't there. He's not a game breaker. He's a solid fullback. I'd agree with those statements. Obviously, I'm not sure if Ison is the answer. I'm not sure if Dykes is either, but we might see someone come from within to challenge. And then maybe you may see that happen. I know you guys talked with Sam the other night about it. Maybe someone goes. I don't think Kennedy's on that huge money to begin with. And if one of those other guys comes to fruition how he'd like, they would probably demand a lot of money. But I'd also say, too, to win, you look at Melbourne Storm's model. I'm not saying it's the one to use, but they put all their money in their spine. They have a red-hot spine, and everyone else they're just all Bellamy, Stockton players that fit into the system. Fitzgibbon is building something here with a very diverse group of young players that are getting that experience. But I think fullback is somewhere we'd all agree needs probably development if we're going to make the next step. So can you do that with Kennedy? Is Hines going to do it? Are we looking at the halves when it comes to 4 into 3s? Well, they come into the picture. I don't think so. I think Hines and Trindle are the way forward. I think Trindle, yes, I wouldn't say it was his best performance of the weekend, but in the first half, he kept us in it. And I think Hines is not worth covering because this year, especially the back end of the year, is a write-off. My one and only comment on Hines was I went back and looked at his form pre-season. Sorry, not pre-season, but pre the first look at injuries where he had the calf injury. He had a blinder against the Roosters. He kicked for an enormous amount of metres there, multiple try assists, was running the ball, had speed, had explosive pace, would be able to fill in at fullback if required, but he's a half and he's a very good running 5'8". You'd probably say Trindle is going to take over there. That's not bad. That's perfectly fine. Plenty of players have had reasonable halfbacks next to him. Let's say a Trindle-like with an explosive 5'8" over the years. I know the roles have changed, but I think Hines's attention is unwarranted given the fact that he is completely hampered by injury. Comparing that and comparing, let's say, his win or performance in the win over the Raiders a few weeks before that when we won 40-0, it's a completely different play. If he can come back round 1 next year and carry that form through, we'll stand in good stead. I can't believe, a discussion for another day, how many people haven't gone back and looked at what he has done and could do and to say the guy's cooked. But that's another story. So I think we're fine with Hines. I think if Trindle,
we'll call
that
that pre-origin, I think, Williams, not pre-injury.
Pre-origin. Franco, what's going to happen here, mate?
No,
how's this going to play out? What's going to happen?
He had a calf injury. That affected him, and he came off against the Panthers. So I think I'm going to say injury because the Panthers game, he was clearly hampered. He was trying to play himself in an Origin jersey. He did, and then Origin killed him. So how's it going to play out? Over to you, mate.
Look, I think it's no change. To answer the question earlier, Boldo, 4 into 3. Yeah, Williams mentioned Simmons. I was thinking the old scenario of Carney, Dykes, Kamali, and Simmons, where in that scenario, I felt that Carney with Kamali or Carney with Dykes was a far better combination than Kamali and Dykes together. In the end, yeah, Carney kind of moved his way into fullback and Simmons shifted out to centre. In this scenario, I don't think we're as flexible. I know Williams has sort of said pre-injury that Hines could probably have played fullback, but I don't think he can. I think that's gone past him a little bit now. I think he's, a good off season. We won't talk about saying he's injury prone or not, because I don't think that's true, but I also don't think he's able to make the distance that's required in a fullback these days. So I do think he needs to be
work.
Yep. I think he needs to be up in the line there at either 7 or 6. I would like to see him in 6. I do understand there's a line of thought that the number on the back doesn't really matter. But ultimately there is a mental side of, who should be running the ship. And if it takes a number on their back to help align with that, then great. There's the other discussion about what side of the field should they be on. If Trindle's doing more kicking, should he be on the right side of the field to better accommodate his boot? But ultimately, look, Nico's in for the long haul. He's got the long-term contract. He's a big money player. I think a good off season, he'll come back and people will forget all about the back end of this season, and he will go great. So he sticks around. The Trindle thing, I'd like to see Trindle stay, but it's going to come down to those contract negotiations. Is he going to ask too much? Is it going to drag on? Is it going to become a distraction?
But also
so
what gets offered,
Franco.
Franco. So
you've
also what gets offered. You've got Atkinson, Trindle, and Kennedy all able to negotiate from the 1st of November for the 2026 season.
Yeah.
And so if any of them get a big offer, they're going to go. And so that might dictate what's going to happen later. And if you've got Braden Trindle offered $900,000 from, the North Sydney Bears or whoever comes in, unless you think he's just so clearly better than someone else.
And as I said on the debrief call, for those that haven't tuned in or listened to it, Trindle and Kennedy are very good buddies. They've come through the grades together. You can see it in a whole bunch of social posts. They're attached at the hip, and a lot of times, I'm not saying it always works this way, it's a business, but if we treat Kennedy poorly or Kennedy's out the door, that's a bargaining chip for Trindle, assuming we want to keep him, that we lose, and that would put his price up or make it just difficult to keep him in general. So whether or not we want to play that balancing act or just sit them down and go, look, this is how it works.
Right, I'm going to put all of us on the spot, and I'm going to start first. If you've got to name one of them who doesn't play for the Sharks in 2026, who is it? I'm going to say I think it is. I reckon Braden Trindle gets a big bucks offer somewhere else. I reckon he's the one who leaves. Franco?
Well, you said next year. So
yes,
that means
they play for us in 2025, but
Okay.
who leaves for 2026?
Who leaves for 2026?
One of them leaves.
That's interesting because we do have an extra year of development for players like Ison. We do have an extra year of Dykes maybe getting his injuries right. So that does put a bit of pressure under Kennedy. We've got some good young talent coming through in fullback.
Kennedy, is that your answer?
No, it's probably what I would like to have happen, I think, in terms of balance. But I think Trindle, you're right. I think he's going to price himself out of the Sharks.
Matty?
I think Atkinson. I think the club seems to be putting a lot of eggs in the Trindle basket, and I hope they leverage off the fact that they looked after him after his massive error of judgment this year, and hopefully they leverage off that. If he goes
Atkinson
to Brisbane,
wasn't
for
one of
example,
the
as
names,
is
Williams.
touted,
Yeah, no, Atkinson was
no,
one
well,
of the names.
he fits into the 4 into 3. He's in the spectrum. I think Atkinson will probably go and get a let's say double the money deal with a smaller club and go from there. Where if Trindle gets a huge money offer from Brisbane, what's to say he's not treated like Dearden or someone else where they cast him aside after a year or two. I hope, obviously his manager will be after it, but I hope that he buys into what Fitz is building. Yes, Kennedy, I think Fitzgibbon's put his eggs in the Kennedy basket for the moment, given that obviously Ison had covered one game. I suppose if you're looking to develop him, if we move Kennedy aside and use someone else, then you're turning the fullback position to another development spot. So, yeah, it's a balance. It's hard. When's the premiership window? He said development. I'd like to ask Fitzgibbon, when does he think the premiership window is open? Is it next year with
Opening
AFB?
now. Next year, Matty.
Is it opening ahead of the following year? Is it next year another development year with AFB, and then you launch the next year? So it's an interesting comment. It's a tricky but good position to be in.
That's true. If we can get it right, Mooney, get it right. All right, well, let's move on to the Jets preview. We'll get to all of these comments. We'll go through all of those at the end. Let's get on to the Jets preview. We'll kick out. Thank you, Franco, for that input. Brilliant and insightful as always. And then let's bring in, we've got to bring in CK and then Lats. Do you guys want to go on record and give an answer to that question of if someone doesn't play for us 26, is it Atkinson, Trindle, or Kennedy?
I'm going to say Kennedy, mate.
Chris?
No, I agree. I reckon it's Atkinson. I reckon he'd be the man that misses out. I've said earlier in the season, he reminds me of a very Connor Tracy, and to Williams' 2.0 comment, you haven't got him in the top 8. I beg to differ because I'm not having Connor Tracy as my fullback going forward to win a premiership like the Bulldogs did. You're not having a 50% turbo every season, and you're not having a 25% Ponga every season. So I think Kenny's defence over the last 2 weeks shows that he's a quality fullback, and he's going to be in that team till he pretty much retires or walks away. So it's probably Atkinson. I think Trindle probably quietening down those big money talks, given he was very off in that game against the Panthers. There was a great game against the Cowboys, but we expected that, and there was nothing in 2 other semi-finals. So hopefully that contract negotiation, like Matty says, works in our favour for a bit of that.
All right, let's get into it. Well, the Jets, 28-22, big win. Chris, I was evenly poised. Key takeaways from the match?
Oh, it has to be Latz's favourite player, Hiroti. That individual try scored just before half-time where he pushed through for about 3 defenders and ran over the top of Fa'alogo from the Storm and scored a try to put us in front. It was an absolute seesaw of a...
Oh, is Chris frozen, or is he just... All right, yep.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, back now.
Yeah, well. Anyway, go on. What'd you make of... keep going.
It was a great seesaw match. Bears versus Jets, what a throwback. The crowd was right into it. I wish I went out there to watch the game. Would have been amazing to see, and it was just as good a spectacle on TV. The commentators call, my favourite of the day was the F-Poss, the tap and go off a penalty. Was probably the best one I heard all day. So very entertaining. Our guys stood up. Ueli scored a great individual try to put it a little bit out of reach, and it was a great match. Quality match that I enjoyed.
Lats, has Roddy won you over yet?
Mate, I know I go on about him a lot, but yes, he has won me over. He won me over in that game against South last year in first grade. He scored a belter of a try in halftime there. Pure power to muscle through there and really give us that edge going into the break. Mate, he's been awesome. He's been awesome, Hiroti. I'll give him that. He's played multiple positions all year. He's filled in. He's battled a bit of injury, and he's come out of it with the premiership.
All right, and so now next week they go to the grand final for the state championship, where they play against that Queensland Brisbane team. What are they called, Chris?
It's the North Devils.
The North Devils, featuring Jacob Gagan.
Yeah.
It's where Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, and Billy Slater, they were the feeder team for the Storm back in the day. They all came through.
right.
It would
Geez,
have been great if we took on the Ipswich Jets, though, because we would have played Jets versus Jets grand final. It would have been great.
Jets squared.
They're pretty good. I'd say it's not a bad looking team. Liam Ison and Marwin Harodi, Sam Stonestreet. I don't know much about the 5'8", Khaled Rajab, if I said that correctly.
He's
Peru's
good.
Peru's also off contract, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes to next, or whether he hangs around playing for the Jets. The big one is Braden Hamlin-Uele, though. Like, if you look at the quality of him as the front row forward, just screams, why was he not playing last week against the Panthers? Big
Has to be
Tukes.
fitness.
Has to be fitness. And then just Sharks legend favourite, Billy Magoulias. He's just so popular amongst the Sharks fans, isn't he? He's just that chip and toasted chips and chasers and all that sort of stuff. Even gets called out in the commentary. Yep, just letting you know Billy Magoulias has gone to the bench. Like, it's a fair lineup. I'd assume betting legends, Lats and Chris, we've got to be favourites in this match.
I haven't looked into it, to be honest, mate, on the sports bet. I can look for it right now for you if you like.
Someone tell us if they're favourites or not?
Yeah,
look
at it for me, Lats. I know in the men's grand final, the Panthers are the actual 4 cents outsiders of the Storm on the weekend, which is quite interesting. But I think this covers as well Fitzy's comment about developmental team, because you got to remember, like, we're in the grand final for reserve grade, and also our flag team come from nowhere and actually went on a streak and only lost by 2 to a red hot Bulldogs team. So I think this covers that with, Roddy, Stonestreet. Puru was unbelievable, man of the match as well. He was given man of the match. Ueli, Tupahua that we've talked on. So some great young guys in there. Liam Ison was probably close to man of the match himself as well. An absolute belter himself. So I think that covers the Fitzy developmental as well, because you got to remember, we had all 4 grades competing for trophies. Like, a pretty good time.
Pretty good.
Liam
Paul's
Ison
in the
was
comments
unlucky.
saying Devils are the Dolphins feeder team. Paul, I'm so glad you're here being the honesty broker of the ET Stand podcast. And Paul, you're right. Maybe I shouldn't have given Talakai the points in my 3-2-1 on Saturday night, but I was really in no position to give a balanced perspective. So anyway, but good to see you, Paul. Oh, you're going to say, Matty?
Liam Ison was unfortunate not to have a try. It was deemed a double movement. Great breaking out of a tackle, and then forced his way. He's tiny. He's 19, forced his way through 3 defenders, and they deemed it a double movement. I thought he got there, but he was run the ball back hard and fast. He's a good prospect. My other takeaway, can't believe that one of the try scorers for North Sydney Bears, Alan, spelt the same way as Alan Fitzgibbon, and his name is Alan Fitzgibbon, and I just looked it up and confirmed that there is another Alan Fitzgibbon getting around. So, Craig Fitzgibbon's dad is some guy that was born in probably 1995 or something ridiculous. But anyway, let me just find it now. So, which is interesting. It's
probably not even,
doesn't have a date of
the
birth
year
here.
2000.
Yeah,
speaking of, look, the cool thing about this team, and you just got to liken it to the 1994 reserve grade team of that era of the Sharks and how many of those players came through, Matty. Like, Liam Ison's a good one. Stonestreet, Hamlin-Uele's obviously a legend.
Took the words out
But
of my
that
mouth,
94 team, Peachy, who else?
Hopefully parallels. So obviously we had the 94 President's Cup team. So Peachy was in the President's Cup team that won on the same day. So the old under-20s team. So I'll quickly just rip through the 94 President's Cup team first, and you'll see, compare the two, that versus the reserve grade. So that team was Peachy, Matt Daylight, Matt Rogers playing the centres, Jason Ryder, Ben Samet, Adam Dykes, Gavin Clinch, the captain and halfback, Damien O'Donnell, Dean Treester, Adam Ritson, Scott Cruel, sorry, can't pronounce your last name. Sorry, mate, Scott. Sean Ryan, Nick Graham, and the bench of Luke Taper, Brad Williams, Wade Forrester, and Brett Garnon, the coach, Stuart Raper. While the 94 reserve grade side that also won the comp that day was Chris Quinn, Kurt Wrigley, Paul Donny, Paul Bell, Glenn Coleman, Scott Brown, Stuart Topper, Michael Porter, Aaron Raper, Craig Greenhill, Adam Marr, Nathan Long, Alan Wilson, the captain, very late in his career, and the bench of Robbie Kearns, Andrew Pearce, Glenn Hogan, the coach, John Dykes. So, you saw plenty of those go through to first grade. That was 5 years before 99 or 3 years before 97, depending which way you look at it. So hopefully we're seeing some similar veins of form here. Haven't seen any Matt Rogers stand out, but yeah, it's exciting times.
That it is. All right. Well, look, what time's that kickoff? About 1 o'clock, isn't it?
I think so.
Where are we?
So yeah,
I'm going to get better at just throwing you guys under the bus of asking you questions, don't I? All right.
State Cup
now,
and then the women's.
Well, it's going to be before. Yeah, it's going to be before the women's for sure.
Before the women's.
Let's get on to the women's. How good was the NRLW? So the Sharks girls beat the 3-time premiers, the Brisbane Broncos, 14-0 on the weekend. The third try proven to be the key moment closing out the match, and actually the first time the Sharkies have beaten the Broncos at all. Kelly, you watched this one as well in full. What's your takeaways from this one?
Oh, and another game that was just spectacular. The girls were absolutely on fire. To hold that Broncos team to nil was just ridiculous. For our girls to come through 14-0, Penatani again was massive. So was Biddle. The girls just absolutely killed it. Quincy Dodd. So we've got 3 of our girls named in the team of the year for this season. So we've got Quincy Dodd, Ellie Johnson, and Anessa Biddle. I don't know how Penatani didn't make that team. Bit controversial, but they made the absolute gun. So the girls just killed it on the weekend from start to finish. Didn't let a try in. Even in the last 2 minutes when the Broncos were looking for a little consolation try, didn't even open a little slipper for them. So it was good to see. We're going to the grand final. Tough matchup. We're going to have to play the Roosters there. It's going to be quite tough, given what happened at home a couple of weeks ago when they absolutely poleaxed us 40-0. So would they take the 2 in that game?
Sorry, guys. I just had to do it for one last time.
Two was not on offer, and they didn't take it. I did like...
no, if we play the Roosters.
I did like...
Yeah, you wouldn't take the 2 at 40-0?
Yeah, 40-0.
Oh, we're not talking about that again. The big...
Jada Taylor. That's answer from a professional to an amateur. It's situation dependent. Case closed. Moving on.
Oh God, you still? Well, I didn't hear you what that. I was too busy listening to the Roosters song. All I heard was that Jada Taylor agreed with me that they should take the 2 all the time. Is that what we got? Is that so? If you want to rewatch that. Anyway, the big in for the Sharks girls this week is obviously the return of Holly Wheeler is a big in for us as well. And then other than that, just the consistency of the team, really. When I was doing the team list, I did go and do the Roosters team list as well. What was noticeable for me is just how many changes they've had since that team that we played them. There's a whole bunch of different bench players, wingers changed, front rows changed as well. Whereas the Sharks really been pretty consistent. That's true. Paul's come through.
Anything can happen.
Paul's come through saying that Vanessa Biddle would have played in our men's side. She would have buried Alamonte. She's that good. Oh, yeah, and one of our commenters, Les Cheer, was saying that, our centres combination's as good as ET and Sparkles, which I do agree with. Matty, lastly, just on the NRLW, what's the impact for the Shark Club of the girls making it through to the grand final?
It is so enormous. It is huge. I don't think we can undersell it. It is second season, first finals. Similar to, I suppose, 1973 was the first finals that we made as the men's, and we went straight through the grand final. Same too as this one. It is an awesome opportunity. Even if they don't win, ideally they would win and win well. But even if they don't, it's got them on the big day. Our colours are represented, our club is represented in a growing competition that is getting so many extra eyes onto the sport, onto the game, onto our club. It is fantastic. And having been the only dedicated women's match I went to this year, or one-off women's match, was that loss to the Roosters, unfortunately, but still, it was about 2,000 people there. Plenty of girls playing at halftime and loving it, and it's just it's a great initiative for the sport, and it's so exciting. And watching it just the other day too. So obviously we had the trauma that was Saturday night, rolling into the Sunday, seeing that Flegg lost. We were out. We're at an Oktoberfest thing, and then got home. It's like, oh gosh, we've lost none from 2. How are the next 2 going to go? And watching it with my boys at home, watching the women's get up in a great performance, and then switching over the Jets and seeing that win too. It's awesome for the club. The Jets winning is great, but obviously they're our theatre team, not our actual club. But having blue, black and white there on grand final day in the women's match, which is the second, it's closer to the men's grand final. It's awesome.
All right, let's bring in Franco. Let's get the 5 going on here. Here we go. Let's put Franco up to the top billing. There you go, Franco. I'll move me down the bottom at least so I'm on the show. Franco, any commentaries on the Jets or the NRLW before we get to the wrapping up moments of the show?
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting one in terms of, I think Williams mentioned the great scenario of us coming into the competition last year and making the grand final the following year, which is absolutely great, but something to be a bit cautious of in the women's league because players do tend to move around quite a lot. And I think that is something to be aware of. The Gold Coast Titans, when they came in, they were the Wooden Spooners. Then the next year got into the grand final and then disappeared. Parramatta Eels went from the grand final to Wooden Spooners. So there is a lot of
just trying to steal out some of the players. They've stolen one.
Well, yep, exactly. That said, I do believe that the Sharks have done pretty well in being a bit of trendsetters of signing key individuals to long-term contracts. I don't see that happening with many of the other clubs. And so I think we've got that long-term planning, which is good to see. And hopefully we do have a very strong junior base. Talk about development clubs earlier on. Well, the NRLW, there's a lot of women's talent out there that want to play for the Sharks. And I think that's going to hold us in good stead. Quincy Dodd, you mentioned, CK, nominated in Dally M Team of the Year. She's been to 3 grand finals already with other clubs. Hopefully this is the one that she gets the win. So, you know, that'd be great to see her finally get a win. And she is a local Sharkies junior as well. So she came home to the club and is bringing us glory. So looking forward to it all.
Pump up. Well, it'll be a good grand final day. Look, we're not in the main game, but certainly being represented those other ones is going to be terrific fun. All right, Maddie, can you go through and look through the comments and pick out what you think is going to be the winning comment for this week? And then I'll just go through.
I've got a 3-2-1 actually. I've got a 3-2-1. So here we go. We're going to start with 1. Scott McLaren, great.
Well, I was going to hold on, Maddie. Hold on. We got to just get through the rest of the comments. But all right, just go and do it, bugger it. All right, just do it.
What did I? You threw it to me. And you, do the rest of the comments because
I was giving it a chance
there.
This is why we don't have 5 in the show.
Didn't you read the notes, Matty?
I did read the notes. That's why I'd already thought about it. That's why I had 3-2-1. I wasn't going to sit there and go, anyway.
Can you read all the comments first and then pick one?
Professionals, amateurs. Anyway, I'm not saying I'm pro. Baldo, read the rest of the comments out because there might be one in there that makes it.
I'm going to give you a little bit. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about it, which should be whilst I do some stuff, and then I'll come to you, Matty. All right. So, Dean 180 in the comments. We didn't get to this one. He's asked. Dean 180 is asking, what happened to the CWC cage? I had fond memories next to them at Leichhardt when I was 10. Well, certainly was good fun.
Make us feel old.
Yeah, that is certainly making us feel old. Yeah, I must have been 12 at the time, Dean. I don't know. But yeah, those were terrifically fun times with those CWSC characters. We're going to try and do a retrospective on that time in the club at some point and the impact that group had on the Sharkies. Richard, we didn't get your comment. I think we should bring in someone to help Nico with his confidence, maybe a halves coach. Franco's been talking about a halves coach for 20 years.
No.
Well, you don't think we should get a halves coach, Franco?
No, I don't.
Get a halves coach,
we discussed
a
this.
leading coach, an attack coach.
What about your old Brad Fittler idea? That was your idea. What are you talking about?
That was not as a halves coach. That was, don't put words in my mouth, Sir Baldo.
Brad Fittler and Nico Hines get on so well. That would go brilliantly.
Well, this went back a while ago, Williams. This went back a while ago. But no, specialist coaches. I do believe in specialist coaches. I do think there's a spot for them. I do at the same time, and we discussed this on the last one, but I think halves coaches is a bit of a mixed bag. You need the right halves coach. Joey John's a great player, great halves, terrible halves coach. He has had no success as a halves coach anywhere he's gone.
Good coach,
that to... Sorry? No, Matty Johns. Matty Johns.
Can I just rebuttal to that, Franco? And I wouldn't say you need a full-time coach. But Joey Johns has his fingerprints all over Nathan Cleary over the last 5 years in just sessions, not as an actual coach, but in sessions. And if you see what Cleary's done with his kicking game, because if you flash back to when we beat the Panthers in a semi-final and when I was there, and Cleary absolutely shanked the field goal and his kicking game was quite average, from where he's gone from there to where he is now, Joey Johns has got his fingerprints all over that.
How good's this?
And it's not from being a full-time coach. It's just for having little sessions with him.
I'd rather Cronk if we're going down the Haas coach.
Yeah.
But
I think you'd certainly take Cronk, but why wouldn't you just get Billy Slater to coach him how to be a fullback?
Because he's not a fullback.
All right, looking at what else we got going on here in the comments. There are a few comments for coming through on Jack Williams. I like this one from 2.0. Jack didn't deserve this kind of punishment being sent to the Parramatta Eels. And then 2.0 backs it up with the GOAT gets a medal. What a player. Scotty McLaren did come through. I think this one's going to be popular. Looking at the photo, I thought Sam was Boldo's dad.
He's pod daddy.
That's a bit harsh.
That's what I was getting at. You still my life.
I thought that was a bit harsh indeed. Dean came through and told us that Maureen Hiroti has signed on. So thanks for that information, Dean.
I haven't been able to find that, Deanie. So, mate, good scoop if it's true.
Deanie or Dean? How do we say that, Dean? Deanie? It's like Cecil all over again. Harley's
the same way that
already
Dean
excited
House
about. Is it? Yeah, it's Harley's excited about Aiden Fanua-Blake. And then...
Surely Harley's got a hat in the drawer there, doesn't he?
I was going to say, surely Harley's got a...
Yeah.
I think he was the first, wasn't he?
Kane Corbett comes through saying Ramian for best and fairest this year. So consistent, faster, more agile, smarter, and more competitive than we've seen him. He can get better as well. And then, look at this. Unfortunately for you, Paul, CK is not judging it this week. A big shout out to CK, who undoubtedly has the best head nod on YouTube. That is definitely true. All right, now, Matthew. Now, are you ready? Are you ready?
He was ready 10 minutes ago.
Are you ready to award the best comment for the show?
Good thing I've changed my choices. No, Scotty, I put your comment up there before. Looking at the photo, I thought Sam was Boldo's dad. Great call. I was going to use the pod daddy line from James. You are my sons from James Fisher Harris, but that's an honourable number one there. 1 point to you. What else do we have? We had Sonia Quigley doing the Brady Bunch, please, where you look at each other. So yeah, that was clever there, Sonia. That's why we don't have 5 of us on all the time, because as you can see, our viewers have gone through the floor. It's just descended into mayhem. And but the best one, which I do like, because it ages me. I was 21 at the time, Dean. But what happened to the cage? I have fond memories next to them at Leichhardt when I was 10. I'll take it you're referring to the 2008 game. We covered that in a Chronicles. It was myself and Lats earlier this year, and it might actually be our highest viewing Chronicles, but at the moment. But yeah, that was fun time. So thanks, Dean, or however you pronounce that, Dean 180. You are the winner tonight, and I'll get back in my box and go back to reading the show notes. Thanks, Boldo.
Oh, Matty, that was so good. All right, gang. Well, that was this episode of the ET Stand podcast. So just a heartwarming thank you from the 5 of us for everything that you guys have been through. Look, if you're the remaining viewers with us now, you're obviously great friends of the show. We will be with you during the off season. We're going to pull back the number of shows, so we'll aim to do 1 a week and probably split the team into 2, so we don't have to do as much. But look, it'll be a fun chance in the off season for us to chat about some things, Sharks, that we don't get a chance to talk about. And if you've got any suggestions on things you would like us to talk about, please do come through in the comments and do that. Stuart Campbell, a regular watcher and buddy of the shows, is going to do a session for us on understanding how much it would cost to rebuild the Shark Park complex in terms of stadiums and all of that sort of fun stuff. I'm trying to get a video with Chris and all the different merch that might be coming out next season. Franco, we haven't decided if it'll be next week or the week after, is going to do an off-contract players video again. We'll do an update on that one. We'll do an end-of-season review. I'm going to do an interview with Francis on his time with the Sharks. Also going to get a former Sharks board member to come on and explain how the salary cap worked for the Sharks. Most notably, just confirming that we were salary cap compliant in 2016 and various other stuff that we haven't thought of yet. So
Be
plenty of
very
fun things.
careful with that, Boldo. You don't want any.
What?
Yeah. Yeah,
Then
I
we
know
dug
we
up
were
any
compliant, but I
skeletons.
just don't want any questions being asked about that.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the whole point of doing the video is so that we can just finally put
Okay.
that to bed because we copped that stupid fine in
Very
2015. So anyway, that was good fun. So other than that, that was the ET Stand podcast for my lovely co-hosts, Matthew Williams, Chris Kelly, Scott Latino, Stephen Franklin. I'm David Bolderman. That was the ET Stand podcast. Sorry, Sharkies fans, we didn't get the grand final we all wanted in the first grade, but we've got some other things going on. We will see you guys very soon. Up the Sharks.
For over 50 years, people have come to see the Sharks play. Talent, skill, speed, intelligence, elite level athleticism. That's not these guys. Biased, one-eyed, opinionated, more often wrong than right. They make up for their complete lack of talent with pure dribble, gibberish, and enthusiasm. This is the ET Stand Podcast.